80. You work at the mail or polling?
What is up, people? Eddie Ads here. Shows one on YouTube, and I'm joined by Mr. George Webb. George, how you doing?
Great, Eddie. How about yourself?
I'm good. Let us know. I don't think we're getting feedback, so hopefully the audio is okay. Let us know here, people. We checked before. Got a new mic set up here at the Swing State Studios, and I'm pleased to be joined by George Webb. Today, we're going to be discussing this election theft that has been going on, this multi-state operation focused on a few different points. But I wanted to first show, you saw that video there of somebody who had stolen some votes in the mail. I don't know if it was a poll worker, a USPS worker, and stolen the Trump votes and burn them. So just a nice little quick video to start off our chat this evening, George, or this afternoon, George. High noon with George Webb.
Hey, Eddie. So I saw your show last night, and that's certainly a very provocative video with the guy burning the votes and so forth. And remember, we're not involved in siding with any particular candidate. I'm not trying to side with Trump or with Biden. What we're trying to do is be a nonpartisan group to protect election integrity. Our election's going to be determined at 3:45 a.m. by whoever owns the Ferrari that drives in and leads the 138,000 votes that all say one candidate, right? That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about any other thing outside of that 1 minute in time when the election was switched. Okay, I don't care from what candidate to what candidate. I just don't want elections to be determined after everybody goes to bed, after we've watched the red and blue lines track the same differential all night, and then see an inflection in one line, 6 standard deviations away from normal, go up when the red Ferrari shows up. So I think people get the wrong idea. This isn't about anything regarding anything else other than ensuring free and fair elections. That's what we're all about. We just want to make sure the rest of our lives, we want Joe Biden to have a free and fair election for his re-election. So that's my initial statement, and we'll go from there.
Definitely, George. Yeah, I actually didn't vote this year as it happened. I thought it would be better use of my time to stay here at the studio. So in that sense, I am, I'm bipartisan or a partisan. I don't know how you'd say that exactly, but definitely for, the due process of the electoral college and the electoral process here in the United States. Definitely.
Yeah. So we tried to vote. I think people should know that we both tried to vote. We were turned away because we were led to believe that we could come into Michigan and we didn't have to register until a few days before the election. It turned out we needed to register 30 days before, even though we were both there 6 weeks before the election. We had heard that you could register the same day and the day before. And we saw that most of the votes that came in for Joe Biden at 3:45 a.m. on the next day after the election were registered the day of or the day after. So we're not trying to undo the election. If a crime was committed, though, and that's what swung the election, then we have to answer that crime. We have to put the person who was wronged in the place that they were before the crime was committed. That's my only objective here. Um, so I'll just leave it at that for right now, and I'll just go on to the discussion. Are you taking calls, Addie, from the group?
I didn't put the number out, but we can certainly do that.
Just a second. Después, por favor. I am in Mexico. I had a timeshare for the last 5 years. Después, por favor. Gracias. See, that shows you I'm in Mexico. I don't like publicizing where I'm going. I'm here to get some free advice, and legal advice is some of the most expensive advice in the world. I haven't taken my timeshare the last 5 years in a row. So this was going to be the 5th year. So I decided to come down. And I'm still on my computer, as you can see, all the time. But I think it's important that we focus as a news gathering organization on the things we can change rather than things we can't change. I see Aaron there, I think, in the back, or maybe that's Andy.
Yeah, Aaron's right here next to me.
So if you want to chime in, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's the same crew, George. You started 4 years ago on a green screen, Seth Rich walks, and the whole shenanigans. And it's the same crew. This is 2 in a row now, folks. This is 2 in a row, right? That's what we really need to. I think we had a chat about, keeping our eyes on the prize here. And this is 2 in a row. Same cast of characters. Maybe a couple new characters here. Maybe a couple, okay, this is the second set of the school play. So a few new characters, but plenty of the same characters, right? Am I missing something?
Well, I'm pretty sure the Ferrari, Warren's Flood's Ferrari had new tires. But that may be the only thing that's different from 2016 to 2020. Warren Flood, I mean, you have to change it, even though if you only run your Ferrari every election cycle, that's only a couple of hours every 2 years. You still need to change the tires every once in a while, I think, even just to rotate them. But yeah, beyond the humor, Aaron's quite right that Warren Flood does seem to be in the middle of this, just like 2016. And Mark Elias, who's his DNC lawyer, also seems to be in the middle of this. People may remember I went up against Mark Elias in 2 different cases. He did not beat me. I stayed in both cases for 2 years. They finally was mooted by a plea deal by a DNC operative by the name of Imran Awan. So Mark and Elias and I are tied at 0-0. But I know Mark, and I know what he's doing. He's trying to throw as much spaghetti at the wall as he possibly can, and he wants to do everything in the world to keep your eyes off the Ferrari, Warren Flood's Ferrari at 3:45 a.m.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. George, you're starting us on Mark Elias, right? I don't want to get too much into the spaghetti on the wall with Mark Elias, but this is the guy, folks. This is the head lawyer, right? And he's out of Perkins Coie in Seattle, which I don't think we all need to go down the Seattle road right now. Maybe we need a special edition with Housatonic Live, Mark Kulak, to help us with the Seattle connection and what goes on there. But Mark Elias is our head lawyer here. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds, George, but I've been doing a lot of work on Mark Elias here the last 48, 72 hours. He's got me real fired up because this guy's got one play, maybe a couple plays in his playbook. He's got the race card, and, other minority cards. That's his shtick. That's his game, right? He's going to come in on this thing and it's, in this community where we've got to count these ballots, everybody had to stand in line for an hour. And over here in the white community, everybody only had to stand in line for 10 minutes. So you're going to have to count this and you're going to have to count that because discrimination this and discrimination that. And maybe that's the back end of this, and we're not going to be the lawyers in the courtroom, but just knowing that that's the play this guy's going to play just makes me angry. I don't know. What can we do?
Right. Well, remember that when you engage a foreign intelligence agency, It doesn't matter how long the lines are. The lines could be to the moon. It doesn't matter how short the lines are at another place. They could be instant voting. It doesn't matter if I'm orange, green, blue, purple. If you engage a foreign intelligence agency to affect a U.S. election, which is what they accused Trump of, if you recall, Warren Flood, these same folks that created the crime in 2016 are the same people who accused Trump of their very same crime. And they're the same people perpetrating this crime. This is a tort against the first family of the United States. Remember, this is the same crew that used a cover organization called Fusion GPS to track and trace the whole Trump family, not just Trump, the whole Trump family and all their travels. That's what assassins do. Okay. That's Mark Elias. Okay. So remember, Nellie Orr tracking and tracing and unmasking all of the Trump inner circle. This is a tort. This is a crime. This is beyond invasion of privacy. This is endangering their lives. Okay. So that's who we're dealing with here. And we can never lose sight of that this is a tort. And our job in the courts is to remedy the victim of a tort to before the tort occurred. So we have to wind.
So a tort in common law jurisdiction is a civil wrong that causes a claimant to suffer loss or harm resulting in legal liability for the person who commits the tortious act, can include intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, financial losses, injuries, invasion of privacy, and many other things. And the injury to the person may seek compensation in a civil suit for damages. So that's a quick definition of a tort there.
Yeah, this is not just a tortious act against the first family. This is a tortious act against everyone who cast a vote, both for Joe Biden and for Donald Trump, because the Ferrari going there, in the 1 minute that the Ferrari goes there with the van behind it, and of course we have film of the van and unloading of the van, that is the tortious act. That nullified your vote. So all people who voted in Michigan have a claim. They have what they call standing. They're all a part of a class action lawsuit. Now, we're not going to get the damages right away because the first thing you do is you ask for the judge to correct the wrongs that are currently still being committed. So if someone's cutting all the trees down, Farmer Jones, the attorney, likes to say, in the forest, the first thing you want is injunctive relief to stop them cutting down all the trees in the forest. Then, and only then, can you take an accounting of all the trees that were cut down, and then total up the damages. So right now, we have to stop the election process, right? And then so that we don't keep cutting down trees. In this case, literally cutting down trees to print ballots. And then we need to then go back to 3:45 a.m. and wind the clock back. Everything that occurs after 3:45 a.m., everything after the Ferrari needs to be put into a sealed area, needs to be seized in a federally protected area for counting. Any judge would do that. And that's the first thing I would recommend to Rudy Giuliani is injunctive relief to immediately seize any ballot that was received after the red Ferrari pulls up, after Warren Flood pulls up in the red Ferrari. And that's what we're asking for. Now, we have to wait, unfortunately, for Rudy Giuliani to file his lawsuit because we don't know how much he knows or doesn't know about the situation in Michigan. And then we need to add on to that the things we know that Rudy Giuliani doesn't know. It's best that we work together with the Trump campaign and the Trump legal defense team than against them. So that's what we're waiting for, is the lawsuit in Michigan.
I'm currently trying to reach out to the woman. She's the GOP poll worker or watcher that was kicked out. I'm trying to reach out to her via Facebook. I found somebody who knows her, so I'm trying to reach out to her as well.
Do you have her name yet?
I don't. I have the name of the person who who watched her that night. One of the Facebook viewers. I reached out to. No,
Can you say what city she lives in? Because that would help people locate her.
I couldn't tell you that. If anybody can help me out in Michigan with this, that would be awesome. Any local contacts or points of support. But I actually got on a similar note some intelligence that let me know that, which I guess is kind of expected, lawsuits and judicial proceedings are happening or will happen at the highest level in the state of Michigan here this week. And that's quite a reliable source that involves the highest ranking members of the party of the Republicans. So that's what I was told.
Yeah, well, and that's why we're in a little bit of a holding pattern right now. We have to unfortunately play with. We can't just strike out on our own. We got enough actions, enough balls in the air. So we have to kind of file what they call an amicus brief, which is called a friend of the court brief, which just informs the court of things the court may not know, evidence that the prosecutor may not have already presented, may not know anything about the Ferrari, may not even know who Warren Flood is, may not know anything about the 138,000 votes that were all Biden. So we have to inform the court, but we can't file a brief against no case. It has to be a motion that's filed in a certain case. So we need a case number. So that's what we're waiting for. And so we're kind of in that holding pattern.
Okay, so holding pattern, data collection phase, you'd say, before we can move forward with action.
Evidence collection, which is real people who were really there, who have personal knowledge, not hearsay knowledge, personal knowledge of what happened.
So, George and chat, what can we do? What can we do? We, the Osprey Nation, maybe next 48 hours, next 2 weeks. Is it, collecting this information and just continuing to post it on the page? Hope the page doesn't get taken down. And this is to George and to everyone in the chat. This is a brainstorming session in a way of like, what can we do and how do we keep our eyes on the prize? Because myself, you mentioned Giuliani, and then I start talking Borat and how I think the whole thing in the Borat movie is a play and it's all nonsense, but like, shut me up, right? How do we keep our eyes on the prize? If it's Giuliani we've got to work with and we got to put these things out of our mind right now, we can do that. But what do you think, George, and everyone else? Just what can we do? What can we do?
Well, Eddie and I wouldn't have spent 6 weeks there. Maybe I was there a little bit earlier, but I wouldn't have come there 6 weeks in advance and bet it was going to be Michigan, where Warren tried the shenanigans. The only other place we thought it would be Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida. And we thought it would be Michigan. We were right. It was Michigan. The Ferrari came to Detroit. We thought that we said, we've had him on the wall. Aaron, you could walk outside, go pick up his photo that's been attached to the wall. We've had it attached to the wall for 6 weeks. We knew it was coming. We just didn't know what time it was coming. Of course, they waited till I got on a plane to go to Los Angeles. And then the Ferrari rolled. Now we're in a position, there it is in the book way back when. I've written about this. There's the pictures I've had on the wall for 6 weeks. Actually, I've had the pictures up for almost 3 years. But in every one of our shreds, we've gone over this and the inner crew that would pull off an election operation. So now we need to do evidence collection. And the whole idea of being there in Michigan was that we'd be close to the people who would be witnesses. So we're now in a position to collect evidence, and we want to bring those people and any other poll watchers to a safe spot. I think we're through the period of unsafe. The threats are pretty much over. We've had a lot of different people who felt very threatened and didn't want to say anything, but now they can come down to the news hour and give their testimony, and their testimony is like a deposition. So I would say come to the news hour. It's 1671 Stearns in Temperance, Michigan. Come to the news hour and do a show. And Addie will interview you and depose you. We'll have a lawyer come on. We'll depose you, and we'll present all this evidence to the judge. It's a safe place. It's 30, 40 miles away from Detroit, so you're going to be safe from any
Safe
threats
space here, people.
that you receive. If you want to testify, you have a place to stay. It's not the Ritz. You're going to be in a sleeping bag or an air mattress, but you have a safe place to stay. But it's important that if you're a witness or we're a poll watcher and you saw irregularities, don't just stay home and watch CNN or Fox tell you you're a racist, because you're not. If let's say you saw somebody being mugged walking down the street and somebody was beaten silly with a club, would you start considering whether that person the assailant was black or white, or what kind of person they are, what caused them to club to death or club someone senseless on the street? No, most people would call 911. When they got connected, they would say, "Hey, I'm seeing this guy. He's 6'8", claiming this 100-pound woman who's trying to go to vote. He just jumped out of a red Ferrari. It's 3:45 in the morning." All these things, right? That's what we need you to do now. I know it's tough. I know it takes an act of courage. I know there's threats right now. I know there's thugs being sent out by the DNC and so forth. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. But if you're looking for the courage to inspire you to come to the news hour and give your deposition, look no further than the guy sitting right in front of you. Addie's he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he's not the tallest guy in the world. He was completely outnumbered. He's got 72 guys around him, all saying, "Get the hell out of here." And he's all by himself. You saw the News 7. You saw the News 7 guys cowering in their van. You saw that. You witnessed that. You're all witnesses to that. You saw Addie go up to the news van and knock on the window, right? The knock on the window was, "Where's your courage?" That knock, knock, knock that Addie did on that window of the News 7 van was, "Where's your courage?" Because you don't have any right now. You should be out here with me. Instead, you're hiding inside your van. You don't have the courage to tell the truth. Now's your chance. Now's your chance to be Addie Ads. Now's your chance to come to the newsroom. Now's your chance to tell your story. And I'm telling you, this is going to not be just this election. It's going to be all future elections are going to be decided at 3:45 with Warren Flood's red Ferrari. And if that's the way you want to go forward, that's the way the world you want your grandkids to grow up in, then do nothing. Then do nothing. But if you believe in this and you believe in free and fair elections, come to the news hour and do a show with Addie Ads.
Do nothing, say nothing, be nothing, said, I think, Aristotle. But yeah, appreciate that, George. A couple questions here. Pretty basic question. This is one of my Patreons, so I wanted to give it some attention. Definitely preferential treatment given in the comment section to Patreons and donation supporters. But just wondering about if somebody's been caught hiding or getting rid of votes for Trump. So about, as George said, 3:45 a.m. on the morning after the election, a Ferrari and I believe it was a Chrysler arrived at the TCF Center. No video that I know of has been found or has popped up showing this yet, but there also have been other anecdotal videos of sketchy behavior, particularly from the people processing the ballots themselves, but shipments as well arriving at various polling locations, including the TCF Center location in downtown Detroit, as we mentioned. And I also had intelligence in Georgia, and I just wanted to mention this again, of an elections monitor in Fulton County who saw Biden's votes go up by 20,000 and Trump's votes decrease by 1,000. with the computer system update occurring a few days before the election took place, and the update that did occur was approved by, again, the Secretary of State for Georgia, but was not certified after the fact. So not just Michigan, but various states that sort of sketchy behavior is happening. And of course, we heard the Sharpies too situation, but I've also heard the opposite, that people were only given Sharpies at voting locations as well, rather than just being well, I guess I want to be opposite, but as opposed to being just mixed. But regardless, I've read that voids the ballots there. But you have people doing the double voting too, where they do the send in and then vote as well the day of. There was I can't remember who it was from Nevada, if it was a politician or someone associated with the Justice Department. I want to say it was the governor. I could be wrong on that, but it was in Nevada, and they were saying that people who had moved out of the state recently, upwards of a few thousand, despite moving out of the state, voted in Nevada as well. So really just trying to sift through all the info is the current state of the situation.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
I want to say now that George isn't here at the studio, the security costs are down. So we are going to tell you the address so that you can come here freely if you don't want to tell us ahead of time. It is 1671. Andy, we said the address last night too. It's 1671 West Stearns Road, Temperance, Michigan, 48182. You can drive here, knock on the door. Addie and Andy are here working late, crunching away every night. So tap on the window if you need to whistle blow in a free place with free citizens who want to hear your story. That is our address. The phone number, if you wanted to call, is 734-224-7090. I don't think we're doing a call-in show right now per se, so we're not saying to call for this show. But if you wanted to call, if you had a story, an election story, like George is saying, we are looking for those who have what they think are interesting stories. And, maybe you aren't sure if your story is interesting, and you're not sure if something you saw on election day or an election night is worthy. If you don't tell anybody, nobody will ever know. So, if you're not sure, let us know. Nobody's judging you here. If you have a story to tell, we want to hear it. Some are more interesting than others, but please don't hesitate to reach out by phone or physically or whatever to the newsroom here. We are certainly looking to just help America. Oh, of course they're calling right away. I didn't, hear any.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, George.
Well, I saw your show last night, and I saw someone call in, and there's been people saying that I was wanted in Michigan. There's people saying we've had the Antifa death threats everywhere I've gone. We've had people say I was leaving the country because of I was wanted for outing this thing with the FBI in Detroit. People say that I'm leaving the country because I'm scared of the death threats. I'm scared of Antifa. People say I'm shutting down the newsroom, in December, like I own the newsroom. I don't own the newsroom. All these rumors are false. I'm coming back. I told everyone exactly what the situation is. I had a timeshare that I haven't used in 4 years. This is going to be the 5th year of not using it. They haven't given me forgiveness for coronavirus. And I'm in this holding pattern waiting for Giuliani, right? And I've been almost waiting a week now. And I thought, hey, as soon as Giuliani files, we'll file the amicus briefs, and we're still waiting. So we don't want to jump out ahead because we don't want to embarrass him. We don't know if he presents this information about Warren Flood at 3:45 a.m. with the red Ferrari, we're done. We don't need to present it. But we're focused on Michigan, and we're focused at 3:45 a.m. with the red Ferrari. I'm not really concerned about any other thing. Any other election fraud, Sharpies. I know a little bit about the Dominion voting system with Nadeem, just from Nadeem was on Capitol Hill for so long, El Shami. But when he worked for Nancy Pelosi. Nadeem Al-Shami worked for Nancy Pelosi from 2007 to 2017, but that doesn't mean anything. What I'm looking at is the crime. And it's just like you had a bank video of a bank job. And here comes the Ocean's 11 team roll up in the red Ferrari, and they all jump out. And then they all, instead of going in and getting the votes and coming out with the money, the votes went in. It's a reverse bank robbery. So in any bank robbery case, they're not considering other cases that the bank robbers might have done, right? I mean, they might, if you say, okay, well, this guy was Warren Flood and he did 2016, he did 2018, he did 2014 with Krylova and Bogacheva, he has a repeating pattern. They might show that to show pattern and practice. But if other banks were being robbed at the same time by other gangs, it's not my concern as a prosecutor. My only concern is Warren Flood in the red Ferrari at 3:45 a.m. And everything else is irrelevant. Everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant. Now, if people want to come to the news hour and bring forward other bank robberies and give us fact evidence from their personal firsthand knowledge, that's something else again. But as far as any kind of hearsay knowledge that we're getting from other news sources, I'm not focusing on that because we have fact witnesses that witnessed the red Ferrari, and we have those recorded, and we want to have that person come down and give us even more information.
Right, definitely. And if people don't feel comfortable calling or emailing, as George said, you can show up in person. Again, that's 1671 West Stearns Road, Temperance, Michigan, 48182, United States. And
Suite E. And the other thing is we can disguise your voice. We can also just have you off camera and just show your hands, depending on what level of comfort. If you're afraid, we understand you don't want to show your face, but if people can see your hands and know you talking, then there's a lot more credibility there. We'll call you Deep Detroit or Deep Ferrari. Yeah.
There you go. Deep Ford Ferrari. Any updates on the cases collectively, both individually versus Google and CNN there, George?
So the party has 21 days. CNN and Donnie O'Sullivan have 21 days to respond to a summons. It's only Monday morning here, so they have 21 days to file. They'll probably file normally you start these things out with a motion to dismiss, just in case the judge, watches CNN every day and is a part of, has dinner parties with Strzok and Page. If that person has dinner parties with Strzok and Page, that's why I didn't sue in DC again. I ended up with a judge that had dinner parties with Strzok and Page. You're not going to win against Strzok and Page if they're having dinner parties with Strzok and Page. But in Michigan, hopefully the person will not know Strzok and Page. And that will go. They'll do that. I'll file a reason for moving ahead after they file their motion to dismiss. The judge will then schedule a discovery after they go through all the pretrial motions. Once all the pretrial motions, they'll probably get a challenge on jurisdiction. You can vote. You can vote in Michigan, arriving the day of on a bus. But if you move there 6 weeks in advance and live there, then that's not residency. I think that is residency. So there'll be some challenges. But then after all the pretrial challenges are done, you'll go into discovery where we get to ask questions. Warren, have you ever driven a Ferrari? Warren, where were you on the night of that November 6th, 3:45 a.m.? Warren, what caused you to want to get up at that time of the evening and escort votes that were 180? Did you know that there were votes in the van behind you? Yes, I did. Well, did you know it was 138,000 votes? Yes, I did. Did you know they were all for Joe Biden? Yes, I did. Well, who informed you that there were 138,000 votes How did you come to that knowledge that there were 138,000 votes in the van behind you? What prompted you? How did you get in the building? Right? These are all the questions that we would get into in discovery. And then at trial, we would call him to the stand and then start getting into his contacts with Russian operatives that have worked with previous elections, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of falderall going back and forth that has to happen. Same thing is sort of true with YouTube. I'm not the key plaintiff in the YouTube case. Aaron is the key plaintiff, and we're still gathering information in that case. But that's moving ahead as well.
Yeah, definitely. Just gonna look at a couple of the comments here. Just Connie, asking everyone to tweet the video out, hashtag stop the steal. And we are not officially associated with those people. Just want to let everybody know. But we do have a GoFundMe set up to support the lawsuit on George's Twitter. And George has a Patreon as well, if people want to support George that way.
Let me also say something about Stop the Steal, because I'm fairly close to this with Ali Alexander, knowing who they are and the group, and Brandon Straka, who you interviewed. Check that out. And Peter Duke knows them. He ran a campaign, Ali Alexander, at Ali on Twitter in 2018. And the similar sort of thing happened. And, the Ferrari at 3:45 a.m., Warren Flood again. I don't think it was Warren Flood in this case. It was a different person in Florida. It could have been Warren Flood. I think it was a Ferrari, but it wasn't Warren Flood driving the Ferrari, I don't believe. Anyway, they got their election turned around and they stopped entering the new votes after the election. And then they went ahead and kept counting votes after the election in Southern California. And then Dana Rohrabacher and 4 other California Republicans lost their congressional seats, which was key in losing the House. Okay. And so Ali feels very strongly that if you get on the streets and you make a very vocal visual protest, that they won't cheat as much as they might have cheated before. And I think that's valid. We went and covered it. You went and covered it down there. I think there was about 75, 80 people, something like that. And I think that's important. But I also think having the information in a court is equally, if not more important.
Right. And again, if people want to send checks to help support Neighborhood News Hour, that I'll actually probably type the address in the live chat if people want to do that. We do want to thank everybody for tuning in. We're here with Deep Journo, aka George Webb, on the election steal and everything that's been going on over the past few days and week with not only Neighborhood News Studio, but the election at large as well. Really focusing on what happened those early morning hours when everybody was sleeping right after the election. I'm reaching out to people, and George, you said you have someone for me to someone's contact info already. I don't know if you want to say that on camera or not, but
well, he put his name out when he originally gave his testimony. So I'll pull it up here and I can bring it. I was hoping to just kind of take a little bit of a breather after the election and not be, immediately, because we already had 2 lawsuits going against 2 pretty big companies. One is YouTube, Google, and another with CNN, right? And I had to write all those lawsuits. And so I already had 2 really big cases going. I didn't really want to have a third case. I thought when we put the election to bed at 3 a.m. in the morning, which was, I think, if people haven't seen it, was some of the best coverage ever in election history at any time. We had all the swing states covered. Addie, you were a part of that broadcast. If you haven't seen it, it's Americana now on how to do news coverage. It's a part of history now. But that was a beautiful 6 hours. And we put the election to bed. We tracked the red and blue differential all night long to show exactly statistically what was happening with those two lines. They maintained the same differential all night long, from the very opening bell all the way to the end. You can watch the 6 hours if you don't believe that. In the key swing states, the 6 key swing states. And then as soon as we went to bed, it's almost like they were waiting. Warren had the Ferrari warmed up in the garage with the votes. It was almost like they were waiting for us to go to bed. Then the Ferrari rolled. It was
probably at a
like
local and a macro level. I mean, if you have access to viewer traffic on websites like Google and YouTube, you can see when people on the West Coast are going to bed, and therefore, you know, all of America is sleeping. So, you know, when that viewership drops off.
Yeah, it was 3:45. I mean, that's when it was. I mean, it just, and I had to get up the next morning at 5 a.m. So I had slept about an hour and a half. Addie, you were there. You know how little we slept that night. You know, it happened in that crowded hour. And we just need to say, look, let's suppose at 3:45 a.m. a red Ferrari pulled up to the White House and they went in and invaded into the first family's home, and they sprayed everyone with coronavirus, or they raped Melania and raped Erica Trump and beat all the Trump boys silly with clubs and beat Donald Trump near to an inch with his death. That's a tort. That's a crime. Okay. All this other stuff, you have to think about it like that. That's the box of evidence that you have to consider. Anything outside of that occurred a day before, or anything that occurred a day after, or simultaneously in another place, is immaterial in the case. This is just about the clubbing and drubbing of the first family and their invasion of their privacy over a long period of time. And it proves, if you don't stop it, because we didn't stop it, the invasion of privacy in 2016 when they unmasked the first family, when Nellie Orr and Mark Elias, the protector of Nellie Orr, unmasked the first family, because we didn't do enough then, it only encouraged them to now, hey, as long as we're here, we're not just going to steal the family jewels. Let's beat the ever-living shit out of the first family while we're here. That's why 3:45 is going to go down in history as the most important minute in American history.
And we're still in the thick of it, folks. We're still, you know, figuring this situation out. Got Aaron Adler here.
Are we going an hour here? Are we going about 15 more minutes, or
are we going all
day?
Nothing's more important.
Yeah, okay.
I don't care.
Well, before I had to take that call, very interesting call. Someone will follow up with another time here. I don't think we're going to take calls on air during this show. But before, the chat was asking about the red Ferrari as a throw. Did you guys get into that while I was gone, or can we discuss that now? Because I think, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day, and everybody, you know, is getting on us like, oh, the red Ferrari, you know, could be a throw. It could be a diversion. And like, yes, I think we all are still just trying to find out what is the red Ferrari, right? And did it have the ballots? Did it not have the ballots? George, you asked earlier about, was it something that was an indication like, hey, when you see the red Ferrari and then the red Ferrari drives away, then the next car that comes is the car you need to do X, Y, Z. Could it be that? Could it be anything else? Could it just be a showman thing just to get us to, you know, watch it? I don't know. You know, I mean, what could it be? And we need to just consider the red Ferrari and the various things it could be, was asked in the chat. Arthur was hammering that earlier, so I want to make sure we got that for Arthur there.
Yeah, good question.
Well, I had done a trip with Dave Down Under in Birmingham, Michigan, before the election. And we had been looking at all the cars. It was a beautiful day. It was a Saturday. We had breakfast with one of our sponsors. I think you might have stayed over at one of our sponsors' houses, Addie, so you know what I'm talking about. So the three of us were there, and we were watching the Ferraris going by, and we had talked about that the Gilberts, Dan Gilbert was and Mark Ilitch are the two patron saints of the DNC in Michigan, and they compete to they're billionaires. And we had talked about how, for some reason, Dan Gilbert, with his red Ferrari, was buying warehouse space at the airport where Trump was doing all of his whistle stop. This goes back to 4 weeks before the election, where he was doing his whistle stop speeches, which we thought was very unusual because we knew that Trump would always did the kind of the chow line handshake, of all the people at the airport before and after. We thought, oh my, is this Dan Gilbert trying to get his operatives in there for spraying some kind of corona or something like that? Remember, he came down with corona a few days after that. I think the throw about saying Trump got the corona at the confirmation of hearing of Amy Comey Barrett is not correct. He actually got it a little bit earlier than that with Hope Hicks. But and Hope Hicks was not at that Amy Barrett meeting. So we had already been looking at the red Ferraris in Birmingham and Bloomfield Hills. And we had looked at the Ferrari Club. There's a Ferrari Club out there. We looked at a lot of the Detroit Red Wings, who had, for some reason, the owner, Ilitch, Mark Ilitch, the son, seemed to make a special gift out of giving red Ferraris to Red Wings, red because of the Red Wings. And Ferraris seemed to be the car of the Red Wings. So we talked a lot about the different hockey players and how the hockey players would have, if there was going to be election operations and it was going to be the Cobo Center, David talked about how the NFL arenas and the Cobo Center was going to be open for kind of election flooding. No pun intended. No election flooding here. I'm not saying Warren Flood did it, but I'm saying for election flooding, if they needed to flood any of your elections, it was going to be done in Detroit in the major sports arenas. So we were already kind of piecing together that it would be somebody who had the cachet, who could roll in late in the evening with a red Ferrari to a flood arena, a vote flood arena, and that would have passage. All the people there at Cobo Arena would know them by sight. Oh, that's Ilitch. He's the owner of the Red Wings. He owns the place we're sitting in. Oh, that's Dan Gilbert. He owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we were already looking for Ilitch, and we were already looking for Gilbert. Who knew, the dealer plate situation? Who knew that was the favorite car of Warren Flood? I had no idea at that time. But that's why I don't think it's a throw. I think all these other things with the Dominion voting system, and it's 5 votes here and it's 5 votes there. I just, because of Dennis Montgomery is involved in that story, and I know he's a shill for Cheney, I tend to discount the Dominion voting system more than I discount the red Ferraris. Somebody who got in there at that time of night, got out of that Ferrari, and they knew him by sight to let him into Cobo Arena. And that's a very few number of people. It means you're in the Ferrari Club in Bloomfield Hills or Birmingham. I don't know how many Ferraris are registered in Michigan, and more specifically in Detroit. And it also means you had to be known to the people at Cobo Arena. And that usually means it's a Red Wing, or it's a Piston, or it's an owner type of person to make that kind of money. And just knowing the pre-election activities of Dan Gilbert, buying up the Trump warehouse, Trump airport warehousing. We had been there in Toledo about 4 weeks before. I immediately started looking at Ilitch, and I immediately started looking at Dan Gilbert. We don't know the answer yet. Whoever drove the red Ferrari, if you want to come forward and show us your video of that night, we'd love to air it for you.
Well, there's probably only so many people in the area who, well, certainly the state, but Detroit, like you said, who own Ferraris.
Who would drive? Let me ask you this question. It's early in the morning. It's 3:41. You're rich enough to have a Ferrari, which puts you in a very small group of people. Why are you escorting a van with 138,000 Biden votes? Wouldn't that seem to be somebody who benefits from that? That's early in the morning to get up if you're a hockey player. They're not playing hockey currently. That's early for skating practice. So wouldn't you think, hey, who in the DNC infrastructure would want to present 130,000 all Biden votes? Remember, we have a differential line going across the screen all night long for 6 hours in that election coverage. Then all of a sudden we have 6 standard deviations, aberrants, straight vertical line for Joe Biden.
Which is of statistical significance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a 5% probability 2 standard deviations out. There's a 1% probability something like that can happen 3 standard deviations out. 4 standard deviations out, you're at a 1,000th% chance. So, could it have been me meeting Angelina Jolie for a date at that time? Yeah, that would be about 6 standard deviations of probability. So, there's a much greater chance that it's somebody in the DNC hierarchy that would benefit from 138,000 Joe Biden votes than me meeting Angelina Jolie.
And the standard deviation is a formula used to calculate an average deviation from the average of a set of numbers, right, George? Is that how you describe it? Okay, so yeah, for those that don't know. So the further or the higher the n to the whatever, n whatever deviation, the less chance or less probability that will happen within that set of that range, right? That's the number set. So, which in this case we're talking about votes.
Yeah. So there's a better chance of me driving my red Ferrari to Cobo Arena that night to meet Angelina Jolie because she called and said she missed me than there is of a DNC operative driving a van of 138,000 votes.
Do you think I'm at like 4 deviations or 4.5?
You're about 4. You're about 4 or 3.
4,
you got the Brad Pitt thing going on,
Oh, 3. There. Wow, George, that's.
You had the Brad Pitt thing going on, when you were down there with the tapping on the Channel 7 van. You had the bravado going on, but wouldn't it be someone who's a billionaire who is going to get $1 trillion because Trump is holding back the $1 trillion, the $5 trillion package, right? Wouldn't the person who would benefit the most from now that they're going to get the Congress and have no veto in the Senate and no veto in the presidency for the next $5 trillion bailout, wouldn't the people who would benefit the most be Dan Gilbert and Ilitch? Yes, they're the billionaires that have been redeveloping Detroit. That's where the crime occurred. You don't go and do the crime in Los Angeles to get trillions to go to Los Angeles. You get the trillions in Detroit so that you can go back later to Joe Biden and say, hey, you wouldn't be in there if it wasn't for our red Ferrari. We want the lion's share of the trillions, right? Wouldn't it make sense that it would be the Ilitch or Gilbert rather than a Detroit Red Wing who's going to make $20 million next year, or whether Joe Biden's president or Trump's president?
So there's a very strong possible motive for 2 possible suspects, you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I look at in any situation and say, who benefits? That's cui bono. We've asked that question since Rome, right?
Cui bono.
The Greeks asked that. Cui bono, and the people who benefit here are Ilitch and Gilbert. Now, I'm not saying it was, Ilitch who can barely walk, but his son loves to drive around his red Ferrari. So you just have to do some common sense, back of the envelope thinking here and say, okay, get the car club of Birmingham, Michigan. It's going to be 11 guys. Okay. And then just start asking you people, did you go down there with the votes, at 3:45 a.m.? No? Okay. Go to the next one. Did you go down there? Do you know who went down there? There's got to be cameras, red Ferraris at 3:45 a.m. are pretty much of a standout in the middle of Detroit. I doubt that people wouldn't have seen that car, especially coming in front of a news scene like it did. So there you go.
Why would a billionaire drop off the ballots himself? Yeah, that's a good point. No billionaire
I
would.
agree with that. Oh, I agree with that. But why would I, as a billionaire, give the car to a DNC operative? Because I want the ballots to get in the building. If they know it's Illich's car, let's say it says Illich, ILICH, okay, they're going to say, I'm here with the boss and I'm bringing down the votes. Okay, and they let him in. Okay. Or it says, he doesn't have to be present. I'm just saying, let's identify the car first. But I'm just saying he's the one who benefits. I'm not saying the billionaire drove down there. But you do have to get the vote in the building.
Yeah.
You do have to get the votes in the building. So if it's some schlub driving the Ferrari and they don't think it's Illich's Ferrari, they're not going to let the votes in the building.
Yeah, right. And what's our source again? Who made the Ferrari claim? It was a video or a tweet? I couldn't recall.
It's on our website, and somebody has destroyed the video now, but it was on our website for the longest time. And she had seen we should play the video, but this also tells me
it's still on mine. Let me pull it up here.
Go ahead and play it.
The blonde woman, right? The GOP. Well, her hair was dyed blonde anyway. Let me just pull it up here, so people can check it out. Still, did you say it got removed off the neighborhood news studio?
People can't play it, but go ahead and play it now so people know what we're talking about. This is not something we set up.
Okay, let me pull this up here, people. I'll replace the Mark Elias wiki page, employer Perkins Coie, as it loads up. Again, if somebody knows this woman, I should and wants to reach out, please let me know. Wow. Give me a second here, people. I'm not going to lose it with this internet. There's a delay in my click, so I'm having trouble pulling it up. But there we go. It's loading. Let me pull up the screen so people can see it.
She needs volume.
obviously there's that's just a big irregularity, something that points to large scale voter fraud, and it literally is being contested by the president of the United States
Oh my goodness.
right now for the state of Michigan. So I am in downtown Detroit at the TCF Center, which is in the heart of Detroit, in the heart of the D. And I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, could you do another Facebook Live and explain where you're at and why you're here?
Okay, I guess people are having trouble hearing her. I'm not really sure why that is. I thought I shared the screen with audio, but basically she says that. So I tried it twice. I guess the first time it wasn't even streaming. So I'm just gonna. It's still on the channel. Still on my channel. It should be on my the Neighborhood News Studio channel as well. But here. I didn't realize that nobody was hearing it the first time.
It's a short clip. It's worth playing. So,
Okay.
I get it into the record if you can. Yeah.
Okay. Let me try this again here, people. I'm not really sure what's going on. I set it to share the audio. So stand by as we pull it up. I will put it on the StreamYard if it's cooperating. Okay. Share screen. Okay, attempt number 3. Let us know how we're doing here, people.
So I'm in downtown Detroit at the TCF Center, which is in the heart of Detroit, in the heart of the D. And I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, could you do another Facebook Live and explain where you're at and why you're here? You can see behind me, that giant room behind me is where they are contesting ballots. So something that's very interesting that happened here in Detroit is, I just talked to a guy that's been here all night. They were ready to shut down the precinct. They had counted all the ballots. Everything was good. Everything went smoothly. And then it was at about 4 a.m. that 3 vehicles arrived, a van, a Chrysler 300, and a Ferrari with 130,000 plus ballots. He said he was astonished as they started counting the ballots. He was astonished that every single ballot, like literally 100% of that 130,000 ballots, were all Biden ballots that hadn't been delivered to the precinct before the cutoff time for this precinct. So obviously there's, that's just a big irregularity, something that points to large scale voter fraud. And it literally is being contested by the president of the United States in a lawsuit right now for the state of Michigan. We literally have people that watched it happen. I talked to people that are here. They're like, what? 130,000 ballots that haven't been verified, that are just being taken in. We have.
Okay, so there you are, folks. It finally worked on attempt number 3. Thanks for sticking with us there. I actually didn't even know I wasn't playing the first time, but hopefully everyone heard that okay. It looks like the audio came through good that time, according to the live chat. So still on my channel. I think it's still on the studio channel as well. A couple other instances, personal accounts of people reporting stuff, but I am trying to reach out to that woman as well as anyone else. Again, you can send it to emails to addyads@pm.me. That's ADDYADDS at pm.me. Otherwise, the studio once again is open door policy now. If people want to meet up with us and rather speak in person, if you want to talk on camera too, we can do that as well. But we're live here, high noon. Actually, just after 1 here with George Webb. George está en Mexico, and I am still in the Midwest here. Should we mention Florida, George?
Yeah. I wanted to come to Michigan for Thanksgiving. Aaron and I had talked about that. We had basically wanted to do, before the election results, we had wanted to do sort of a charrette there, sort of a wrap up on the what we had thought would be counting problems in Florida. And then we said we're going to go to Florida. Aaron and I had talked about saying, hey, then we'll go to Florida. The problem, there is a video showing the Ferrari, somebody just said, and somebody please send that in.
If you could link that, Arthur, please do in the live chat. Public Intelligence Agency, the PBI, as I like to call it, tongue in cheek.
Peter and I did a video where it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds on my Twitter that showed the Ferrari. So anyway, it should be on my Twitter. So anyway, like I said, I have 1 week that I've let go for 4 years in a row. And I decided to go this week. I thought, well, I'll have a week where I'll come back to Michigan. What happened was family members said, hey, wait a minute. This is a key family time. Grandparents want to be with their grandkids. This is one time a year where they can get to be with their grandkids. You're making me choose between you and grandkids. I don't want to not go to my grandkids thing. And I thought, okay, all right, I get that. And I started asking these folks, where are you going? Well, maybe we'll do it the first week after Thanksgiving, after you've been with your grandkids. And they said, that's a great idea. I said, where are you going? The first one said Florida. And the second one said Florida. The third one said Florida. The fourth one is CIA Tom, who you know well. And he said, oh, I've got this land in Florida, and you guys can all camp out in Florida. So being the incredibly adroit thinker that I am, I heard 5 Floridas, and I said, it seems like
that's actually Tom's friend's place, George. But just so people know,
someone will make this available, and I get it. Grandparents want to be with their grandkids on holidays, but also Disney's reopening in Orlando at Disney World, and we've had a whole summer. Yeah, and we've had a whole summer where grandkids couldn't be with grandparents. And I thought, well, if we go down to Florida and we're close enough to Orlando, all we need is a big field, basically, with some electricity for tents and campers. And, nearby hotels, people want to do that. I think it's important to show the American people that there is a cadre of people, sort of a Valley Forge, that care about free and fair elections. I want every black person to vote. You and I, both being of Indian blood, we all want Indian people to vote. All you and I both being of partially Hispanic blood, we want Hispanic people to vote. We want everybody to vote legally. Legally. I don't want anybody to vote illegally. And the last thing in the world that I want is a Ferrari at 3:45 a.m. to drive in because they're not happy with not getting the 5 trillion out of Congress, right? They're not happy with they're not getting the 5 trillion. Trump's blocking the 5 trillion. And now they're going to get the 5 trillion easily with Biden, right? I don't want that person determining the election and voting after the election. So all I want is, if I'm the only one there, if I'm the only one out there in a tent that thinks that 345 Ferraris should determine the elections from now for the rest of our lives, then I'll be the only person out there. You know, if 2 people care about it, then there'll be 2 people out there. But this is a statement about 3:45 a.m. Ferrari elections. Come there if you want to make a statement. And we're going to tell the world, we're going to show the tents, and we're going to say these people don't want elections to be determined at 3:45 a.m. by red Ferraris for people who are the beneficiaries of trillion-dollar bailout packages. So if you want to be called a white supremacist, even though you're half Mexican or you're half Indian, stay at home and listen to Fox News. Stay at home and listen to CNN. Stay at home and listen to MSNBC. I'm just offering the alternative of people coming to Florida, spending a little time with their grandkids at Disney World, right? And then being with people who do care about free and fair elections for their grandkids. Your choice, right? So,
Yeah. And so we'll be out there sometime beginning of December ish. If people want to meet up with us out there, certainly appreciate it. But in the meantime, I will be here in Michigan. I will be heading back to Wisconsin at some point to regroup and grab some things there.
suntan
But
oil.
What's that, George?
Suntan oil.
Yeah, there's plenty of that in Wisconsin. No. Yeah, but you know, the Florida trip I think is a great idea, especially in the winter. And again, if people want to reach out for that, please let us know. We are trying to get better about answering the phone here at the studio. I know at least one person was, I guess, annoyed that sometimes the phone is not always picked up, but we are getting better at that. Email address is open, as we said, and now we got our walk-in policy, so people know our address if they want to send us things. I know some people have lost trust completely in online, financial donations. I've had quite a few PayPal donations go through recently without a hiccup, and the link for that should be in the description box if people want to take advantage of that. And I did put the link for the GoFundMe, the Pro YouTube Journalist GoFundMe as well. And let me put it again. It's on a tweet on George's Twitter, but the link to it I will put in the live chat. So if anybody wants to make a GoFundMe donation for our suit against the empire of Google, the dark and censoring authoritarian empire of Google and YouTube, as they try to extend their technocratic reach and its tentacles deep into our pockets and into our psyches and into the wallet, the pocketbook of our civil liberties. So links in the live chat, people, if you want to do that, or if you want to make a donation to myself or George has a Patreon as well, and so do I. But people seem to be liking the PayPal a lot recently. I noticed you can just do a quick, easy one-timer, so that's appreciated as well. I am upgrading my phone. It's in the. Well, I got to say, I got gifted a phone. So shout out to, I don't know if he wants a shout out or not, but shout out to Bandwidth for that. But I have to say bandwidth, and I'm going to go with the Google Pixel. So we're going to figure that out. Either way, new phone is on the way. Should be here soon, as is a new mic. I'm actually using a Samsung right now, Samsung dynamic microphone. Hopefully people are enjoying that setup. But I wanted to get a nice USB dynamic mic for when I'm on the road, and just use that as part of my mobile studio setup. So I really appreciate the donations, people that allow me to do that and to pay back my uncle as well. So that was great. So shout out to my uncle who helped me out, and now I paid him back. So really appreciative of the support, people. Please hit that subscribe button as well in the bottom right, which will be that way, right? Oh my goodness, I got it wrong. There it is, that way. So if people want to do that, George's Twitter is still active, and that's the best way to see most recent updates from George. And you still go on the Periscope on Twitter as well, George.
Yeah, and I would just suggest that people hear it from us first, rather than repeating rumors and so forth, because NSA and all these people, all these organizations like NSA, they can pay shills to do anything, right? To disrupt and disorient and try to dismember groups. They've been doing this since before the 60s, right? So they're going to pay people to spread rumors like there's a death, Antifa has a death warrant out for George Webb, right? They're going to spread rumors like George is leaving the country because he's afraid. I'm going to be right back in the country when the week of the timeshare's up. And I'm going to be right back down there with Eddie in the worst neighborhoods in Detroit or wherever else. We'll have to go to the worst neighborhoods in Orlando. We'll go to the worst ride, Eddie, at Disney World. We're going to do the most fearsome ride. We're not going to be afraid. No, I'm just saying, I'm being a little funny there, but there's no death warrant, and I'm not running from a death warrant or a death threat. So please, I'm going to be back in a couple of days. I haven't used this thing in 5 years. The whole thing about the newsroom shutting down because I'm afraid of Antifa is a lie. The newsroom is going to be fine. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of talk right now of Tim, the driver of the Magic Bus. You remember Tim, the driver of the Magic Bus, Addie? The Magic Bus?
The urban assault vehicle,
Tim?
you mean, George?
Yeah. We don't call it that because it's only truth. We don't assault anyone other than with truth.
The urban truth vehicle.
Correct. Urban truth vehicle, seats 12. And there's a great clamoring. I hear a great clamoring that we have. If you want to come to the news hour and stay all the way through the end of the month, and on the 30th, we'll load up the great truth vehicle and bring it down to Florida. And we'll stay there till before Christmas. And we'll have 3 weeks of truth. And you'll be in the truth wagon the whole way down.
Yeah, definitely. We shout out to Mr. Tim Spencer for that. He's been on the channel before. No problem. Len Jarella. I was just sharing George's Twitter via one of his tweets there. His Twitter is just George Webb, George without the E at the end. GEORG, Webb with 2 B's, and that status there that I put in the live chat is for the YouTube journalist lawsuit GoFundMe, which will be used to pay procedural legal fees as it pertains to that suit. We hope to win against Google in order to use those winnings to really propel our business forward.
That's also a class action. I want everybody to know that's not just for Neighborhood News Hour. That's a class action. Again, we're taking the tort leg, not the contract leg. We're not going to argue terms of service. We see that as sort of lemmings off a cliff. No offense to the Q folks, but arguing terms of service with Google, that lawsuit is sort of lemmings off the cliff. And I don't mean to say lemmings are bad. I'm just saying it's a waste. When you go the direction of the tort, you then say the contract is ill. It doesn't matter what you say because the law of the land is supreme to any contract that you may write. You can't sit down and write an unconstitutional or illegal contract. That's unenforceable. Okay, you can't defraud Aaron of all of his wealth investing in YouTube and a channel there with brick and mortar, and then say, well, that's not what the contract says, right? This is an illegal tort. Okay, so going down the tort train, the fork, allows you to argue torts rather than allows you to go down that terms of service. Because once you click that OK button on the contract, you are in the contract. You're now in a little tunnel that YouTube has that goes right over the lemming cliff. So that's why we don't. And I feel so sad for them because it's $120,000 or $130,000. I don't know what they've raised, but it's going to be lemmings off a cliff. Hey, you sign the contract, you click the OK button, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about a tort. So anyway, Aaron, anything you want to add to that?
I just love and cherish all of you guys so much. I thank you for the opportunity to wear the citizen journalism hat with you for a little while this morning. I got too many hats I need to wear on a Monday at noon, and I am taking phone calls and needing to peace out. But keep going, team. We're doing this. We're going to keep rocking. The news hour in Michigan is surviving and thriving and moving forward, and the news crew is continuing on to the Florida awesomeness coming soon. And yeah, I'm super pumped.
As well, shout out to Wesley McCullough, who got I don't know if it was just for me or I think it was the whole studio. He got us like a light for phone broadcasting, so that's really appreciated there. And I want to talk to Wes because we got somebody, I can't remember who it was, that really liked the sweatshirt, and she said she was wanting to buy one. Actually, the sweatshirt of the picture that Wes took of us, George, last night. I don't know if you saw that on the broadcast, but
one just proposal here, maybe, if we wanted to plan moving forward the next week or two to try to do an online, a regular thing with you, George, and the chat, and everyone can plan. And we can maybe move these cameras and things over to where the whiteboards are, and we can do maybe a 1 hour or hour and a half kind of whiteboard session and pretend that
high noon,
the lawyers.
What's high that? Noon, high noon every day if you want.
High noon.
High noon.
High noon where you are or where we are?
Where you are right now. High noon. I don't want to step on John O'Loughlin's time frame, but we can go right on after John, and I don't mind doing 2 hours, an hour and a half, whatever. And we could do a night show too. That's not a problem either. But I don't want to step
specifically an asset gathering. Keep our eyes on the prize. Stay focused. No talking about Freemasons. No talking about other things that we all get so excited to talk about. But a focused 1 or 2 hours of us, me and Addie, and you, wherever you are in the world, and the chat here on the whiteboard, okay, red Ferrari, ballots here, X ballots there, times, we got all these whiteboards, and the lawyers can watch us, Mark Elias can watch our show, and others, Trump Giuliani can watch our show, and we can just be there, and we're pro bono. What do they call them? The
pro hoc VJ, right?
Well, no, what's the people in the law office who get all the files, who aren't the lawyers, but they run them around, and it's like the pages. I think a page is for congressional.
They're called paralegals.
Paralegals. Yeah. You didn't like being called a journalist, so I guess you're gonna have to be a paralegal.
Sure. Yeah.
Citizen paralegal. Here he is.
So
yeah, high noon every day.
Yeah, we could do. I'll see you later, Aaron. Thank you to Mr. Aaron Adler, the Energizer Bunny of the Neighborhood News Studio, as he shares that picture of Warren Flood. Once again, one of the weirdest names ever, Warren Flood. But George, what are your final thoughts before we sign off here?
Remember also that every day between now and the Magic Bus, when the Magic Bus gets there on November 30th, every day between now and the Magic Bus day going to Florida, we should try to get a guest in at noon who is either an attorney who knows Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or election law, or some witness that somehow was there or close by there, or somebody who's a Facebook friend of the person who was there. Any kind of evidence gathering that we can do between now and then. Specifically, you don't have to take anything outside of War and Flood or 3:45 a.m. Now, remember, we also have 2 other lawsuits going against CNN and also against YouTube. So anybody who's been deplatformed from YouTube would be a guest, or anybody who's been smeared by CNN, the 14-year-old kid who created the meme about the CNN logo and Donald Trump body slamming the CNN logo. He would be a great guest now because he's 18 and his life was smeared by Donnie O'Sullivan when Donnie O'Sullivan said he was a Russian agent. Okay, so people need to hear these stories directly from the people who were affected and wronged and smeared, and those are valid stories as well. And I'll do stories beginning of the day all the way to the end of the day, as long as you guys can bring the people forward.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, George. We'll definitely do that. Maybe you can convince Farmer Jones to come on my channel again as well.
Oh, sure. Sure.
All right, let's leave it there then, George. I know you got some chicas mexicanas para con tu vas a pasar tiempo, ¿sí?
No, mi día es yo estudio todos los horas de la día.
Okay.
Hay en la noche algunas veces hay 1 minuto o 2 minutos para mí. Todo el día es por otros. Okay.
El resto del día es para trabajar y estudiar los hechos, sí.
Correcto. Gracias, señor. Hasta
Por
mañana.
supuesto.
Okay,
Hasta mañana, señor. Gracias a todos.
Vaya con Dios. Que le vaya bien.
Caden Frosty, folks.